וזה שאמרו שלא היה יכול למלמד על סוף דעתו. That Reb Meir, the Chachomim couldn't understand how deep he goes. They couldn't stand at the depth of his das, at the depth of his understanding. כי לכל das ושכל נברא יש סוף וגבול עד פה יצובוי. מה שאין כן לדעתו, the das of Reb Meir, לא יש שום גבול ודבר שמגדיר שנאמר שעד כאן תחום שכלו ודבר כזה לא יכול לתאר ברכב דעתו. Meaning for everything there's a limit. For every person there's a limit of the knowledge that he knows, the understanding that he has, and the wisdom that he is connected with. And therefore there's going to be something in this world that's still, as far as he's concerned, Ra, that's still Dovik in the Klipos, which means that it's still in an area where the human mind is not ready to clean out, is not ready to fully understand. And therefore we call it Tomei. Tomei means everything that's still Nivlan the Klipos, meaning that if you want to get a certain thing, you have to go to places that have all kinds of problems, have all kinds of obstacles in there. And a person doesn't really want to get involved with that because he doesn't have the chokhmah to be able to be mevader afterwards and to allow himself to come back home after his journey. And a lot of people, when they go into the klippos, meaning that the HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends us all around the world, the purpose of Golus is that we should be melaked the nitzoitzes. The nitzoitzes are the chelkei hachaim that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world with, that give life. And some of these forces that give life are not available to us, especially not in Golus, because the nivla ben haklippos, meaning they have been understood fully. And we don't have access to them in the proper way. But by Reb Meir, there was nothing that he could contemplate that he wouldn't be able to bring back to the Shoirish and recognize the good that's hidden within. V'amida is going to explain why they said the Lashon Lamed al Sof Da'atoi, because Amida Nikrik She'oimed Ve'en L'mokem Le'elech Yoser. When a person stands, it means that he feels that he has a certain stability where he is. He has a certain understanding that he can stick to. V'hu ba'oimed al ha'gvul. V'lechein amish etzloi lo yicholem lamed al sof da'atoi, ki en lo gvul. V'lechein ha'locha kanal. Reb Meir didn't have a gvul in his understanding. Therefore, you couldn't stand al sof da'atoi, because wherever you would stand, he can go further. So there's no place to stand. Like the Lashon that Chazal say, Talmidei Chachomim, En lehem menucha, they never have peace because it says Yelchum Yichayil al Chayil. The pasuk says they're going to go from one strength to the other strength. So they never stop. Even Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba, they continue to be masik deeper and deeper the truth, which is endless, and therefore they never have the type of menucha where they just stand in one place. And like the pasuk says by the Navi, where it says Vayitnecho mahalchim bein ha'omdim ha'ele, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives a person mahalchim that he can go between the oimdim. Who are the oimdim? The oimdim are the sichlim, are the malochim that create the concept of life that we live with. So at the origin of life, there's the infinite being. There's the complete unity. And that unity is covered with sichlim. Sichlim are the rules with which HaKadosh Baruch Hu created reality. And those sichlim today are covered with language. So when we think of words, when we think of concepts, when we think of ideas, we're interacting with sichlium, we're interacting with spirits, we're interacting with forces that animate the human being. And all these forces report to one unit, to one clean self, which is the Mekara Seichel, which is the source. And that self, when it's undefined, when we recognize it for what it is, which is the origin of our nefesh, the nefesh ha'medaberes, right, the nefesh that speaks, is above, is the one that's riding upon our other nefashis, the lower level nefashis, like the body, which is from the Yesod the Ofar, and the deeper level of spirit is the Mayim. The Mayim is also a type of spiritual being that lives in the blood, that lives in the liver, like we've discussed, and the Koach HaMedame comes from there. And the intellect, which is the Koach HaRuach, the ability for us to perceive concepts and ideas and interact with them. And above all that, to lead all of that, like the pasuk says, Yad Ber Amim Tachtenu. What does it mean? Yad Ber is the lashon of Dibur. That through the Dibur, we're leading all these different spirits and giving to each its necessary sustenance. And when a person could balance all these different beings, all these different spirits within him, all these different needs, all the desires through his speech, through understanding the origins of language and understanding how language dresses the inner essence of the human being, then he starts becoming in control of his spiritual self. So within that nefesh hamedaberes, there is a being that cannot be contemplated by any of the lower beings. Because the rule is always that the higher you go, you can contemplate everything below you, but you can't contemplate above you. You can never recognize and know something that is beyond your level. Because like the language says, in spirituality, it goes, ili yadativ hayisif. If I know something, then I am it. Because that's the nature of the spirit. The spirit is a sikhli. It's a type of knowledge. So when the spirit knows a certain knowledge, it is that knowledge. It becomes integrated. That wisdom becomes integrated into the being. So when a person goes high enough that he gets to know the very origin of his being, the very origin of his nefesh hamedaberes, which is a pure power, a pure force that can be covered with all the languages that we have covered it with. So all the 70 languages report to the same being at the origin. So if I learn a new language, I'm not going to change my essence, but I'm going to change my manifestations of that essence. I'm going to change my understanding of that essence and how I interact with it. That's the power of language. And that's why we have Lashon HaKodesh, and we see that when we speak about the Bechira that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Bocher in Klal Yisrael, we always speak about the language. Ibani v'charto mikal am v'loshon. Am is the culture, is the behavior. And what's the origin of culture and behavior? The Lashon. The Lashon comes before. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose us to give us the Lashon HaKodesh, to give us a language that is noivlos chachma elyoina, that relates to the actual being as it is. And it doesn't create tumah, it doesn't create misunderstanding like the other languages which are created by pure kishuf. Meaning they're not here to help you, to free you. They're here to enslave you. They're here to put your mind on certain tracks so that you stick to a certain agenda that was inherent in that culture. And the Lashon HaKodesh is here to give you the power over language, to free you from language. So therefore, what we're trying to get to know is the Shem Havaya. The Shem Havaya at its origin is the power within that can understand all languages and can manifest in all languages. Like we say on Shabbos, Kifi Hashem Diber, that Hashem, all speech relates to Hashem. And this is why when religion is properly understood, we can see that there's no such a thing as an atheist in this world. We all worship the power within us that can speak. And how do we worship it? By speaking. So anybody who doesn't want to worship needs to stop speaking. Otherwise, why is he speaking? Who is he trying to please? He's trying to please the force within him that actually gets regulated by speech. And that force is an extremely powerful force. That force goes beyond anything that we are capable of getting from it because we have limited language. We have limited understanding of language. And therefore, we're trapped in the lower worlds. We're trapped in realities that relate to the language that we know. And we keep going in circles in that reality. But when people will start peeling off the layers of language to get to the origin of language, to understand how language was created, they can find the origin of man, which is hidden behind language, which is the one that can be all these things, the one that creates all the concepts in your mind. Even right now as I'm speaking, every word that I'm saying is causing your essence to dress up into a certain meaning, into a certain reality, which is not necessarily real in the way that the Greeks think about real. It's real because we've created it. But it's a creation called yesh me'ayin. Speech creates yesh me'ayin, meaning it creates in your mind a concept, an idea, a thought. It gives you chaim, it gives you life in a specific flavor. And it does so by dressing up your essence. So you're always looking at your essence, but your essence is dressing up in different ideas and concepts based on the words that are being used to dress them up. And that's in the side of the Malbush, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mislabish in order to interact with this world. And this is done through letters and words. So by peeling off these layers that we've covered our essence with, by trying to understand how does language really apply to the human being and what's the goal and what does it do? Because in Judaism, language was a problem. Language was not a solution. Meaning that language is the easiest way for a person to create kishuv, to cover what's real. Because when we speak, we create a fictitious reality and it seems as real as the real one. But real speech, Lashon HaKodesh, only points to reality. It never tries to create a concept external of reality. So if we speak Lashon HaKodesh in the way that we speak other languages, where we don't really understand what the word is pointing to, what's the real nature of what's being discussed, so then Lashon HaKodesh can also become Kishuv. It's not Lashon HaKodesh anymore. We're just using Lashon HaKodesh, we're using those letters, we're using those words, but the meaning is foreign to us. The meaning is not real. It's not pointing to reality. So only reality is real, and the purpose of language is to clarify reality. And when language doesn't do that, when language makes reality even more ambiguous, it makes it even more hidden, then language becomes a form of kishuv, a form of mind control. And this is essentially how we use language today. So Reb Meir, through his power of understanding the origin of things and the origin of what happens and how it happens and why it happens, he could bring everything back to its source. And the source of everything is good, because our inherent nature is good. So what the Torah did after the Lichas Rishonis was, like Chazal say, Chores al Lichas al Tikr Chores el Cheres, which means that after civilization was created, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to give us complete freedom, and Yamat Elikim Atem, where Klal Yisrael won't be enslaved to language like the rest of the civilizations that were created at the time. But when Klal Yisrael themselves were not ready to accept that high level of existence, when they couldn't understand themselves without language, they needed language, so they showed that they needed bondage through the egel, that they're not ready for freedom. And the bondage that Moshe Rabbeinu gave them has within it the seed for freedom. So that a person through the Torah can go out back to recognize his true nature, his true self beyond words. But only through delving into the Torah, by being amel in the Torah and recognizing the real message that's hidden within all these words. And the Torah that he gave us is he gave us a language called Lashon HaKodesh. And this language, if we learn it properly and we can understand the real associations that are within this language and how the different words correlate with each other and what they create, we can understand how language created the man that we know today, created the people the way that they are. Because language is a formatting of the mind. It's a very, very, very deep procedure. It's very, very invasive. It takes away, it defines everything that you have available to you, all your spiritual koiches, all your powers, and it limits you to certain areas of the brain. Because if you don't have language to get into the other areas of the brain, you're not developing them. They remain unused. They remain potential that's not manifested. But the Shem Havaya, which is the colorless, formless, and the essence that's at the source of all of this, that's the possibility, the potential to manifest all of this, has so much more potential, even already prepared in the physical. So what Moshe Rabbeinu did when he created the bondage is that he created it in a form where you can actually climb the ladder. It's like a sulam mutzav artzav rosh hamigah shemaima. You could climb the ladder to find out what is the origin, what is the source, and where are we going with this, and how can we undo the damage that's been done to humanity through the different languages. And at the top of that, when a person arrives to that, and Mashiach is going to get to that place, a person meets his maker, essentially. He meets the one that he's covered in all these different colors and flavors and thoughts and ideas and words. And the thoughts, the flavors, the ideas, and the words are not real. But the one experiencing them is. So that's the reality that he's pointing to. And the one that's inherent in each one of us, that is capable of understanding these languages and interacting with them, is identical within each one of us. And that's why it says, Asidim tzadikim lekor b'shmo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this is not only Chazal, this is actually a pasuk that says about Mashiach, v'zeh shemo yashiyikroi havaya tzidkenu. That he's going to be called Havaya, he's going to be called by the Shem Havaya, meaning that he's removed all the filters and all the colors and all the different paintings and restrictions that we place on our essence. He managed to remove all those and go back to the essence of Havaya, to the being that is within all being, the origin of the Nefesh HaMaskeles, the Nefesh that understands, because what our tradition tells us is that within you, that can be dressed up in language, is the same seichel, is the same intelligence that created the universe. There's no separation. And therefore, when he'll have the right information, when his language will be coordinated appropriately with reality, he will understand all of reality. Because that's the potential that he has. It's the same seichel that created life that lives in life. There's no differentiation between it. The only thing that makes a difference, the only thing that restricts it, is our understanding of it, our limitations that we place on that life force, on the Chai HaChaim, on the Mekar HaChaim. And that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu is called the Neshama LeNeshama. Your Neshama is your perception, at the very origin of your perception of how you see life. Your Neshama LeNeshama has no form, has no perception. It's the potential to perceive. And that potential is within all of us, and it's within all of life. And that's what made Moshe Rabbeinu so powerful, because Paroi, he only knew all the different flavors that you can get out of that potential, all the different possibilities of manifestation, but he didn't get to know the actual one that's dressing up in all of that. That Moshe Rabbeinu recognized and Paroi didn't know about. And therefore Moshe Rabbeinu was more powerful than Paroi, because Moshe Rabbeinu was not restricted to what's manifested. He was beyond manifestation. But Klal Yisrael was not ready for that. Klal Yisrael was not ready to live at that level, and it took a few thousand years of suffering where they're going to be ready again, where they're going to recognize that maybe language is not their best friend. Maybe there are other ways of going about this. Maybe we can be kind and good regardless of ideology, regardless of philosophy, regardless of words and thoughts and ideas, just to be good at the origin, to be good beyond words. To be kind, not because society makes you be that way, or because you're going to be in trouble otherwise, or because you might get a punishment if not, or you might get a reward if yes, beyond all that. Because these are all types of bondage. Bondage in order to control. To control a source, an origin, a seichel that doesn't understand itself and is hurting itself. So we're going to create bondage that's going to balance out the other bondage. Now he wants to run this way because of his bondage. Let's create bondage that is going to want to run that way. Now he wants to run that way too much. Let's create bondage so that he can stick closer to the middle. But when a person appropriately understands his life force, appropriately understands who he is, then adarabah, no bondage. No bondage whatsoever. Every moment, a king of its own. Every moment lives for itself and does the best that it can with it. And that's beyond words. That's not a message that can be given over with words. That's a message that a person can only experience when he is alive at that level. Because that message is all 72 languages put together. It's the good of all of them. If every nation managed to take something good out of that origin, out of that seichel, out of that mokor, we're going to be awake at that level so that we can have all the good from all the languages and beyond. Because there's so much more good that the languages haven't even recognized yet. There's so much more, there's so many more types of manifestations that this being could have that the languages don't allow us access to. So all the historic experiences, all the experiences of people in the ancient realities before civilization, all the experiences of the people within the ancient civilizations and beyond, all the good of all that is available to us here and now. Because the being is still here, it's the same being. It's just the access to it, the ability to convince that being to go and present itself in different ways and in different faces and in different recognitions, that we've lost. That each generation has only its own. Except for those few who have managed to release themselves from the bondage of time and the bondage of words and the bondage of society's perception of what's real. Because whatever we perceive as real is absolutely not real. It's just a perception. It doesn't exist anywhere outside of our minds. So when we go back to the recognition of what's real, then we have freedom, then we have chayres. And that's the message of the Torah. That's where the Torah is trying to take us. So Reb Meir, he had access to that place. He had access to that level where he can just undress every type of limitation that was placed on this chayes, that was placed on this Mekar HaChaim. He would be able to dig through it and find the true meaning of it. Because at our essence, we're all good. We're all kind. This is the nature of the being. The nature of the being is that he's a Rav Chesed and he's Mate Klape Chesed. But when we dress him up in certain ways, we bring out his anger. We bring out his resistance. Because he doesn't change. But as we dress him up differently, we experience him differently. Ani Hashem lo shenisi. Right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I've never changed. How does that happen? Because we're moving. He's not moving. We're always the ones that are moving. And this is what Chazal did. This is what the Torah did with the spiritual, which we called before oimdim. The spiritual never moves. So how could the Torah give us a whole story about the spiritual? How could the Torah talk so much about something that doesn't move? Because in order to deliver the meaning of things that don't move to people who are still living in their imagination, we had to dress it up and pretend that it does move. And how do we do that? We do that by changing the one who is moving with the one who is not moving. So I'll give an example because this is a little subtle. So let's say, for example, if we have a wall and a person is trying to walk, is trying to go. So we would say that the wall is screaming, you can't walk here. And if you're going to violate what the wall is saying, you're going to get hurt. If you're going to run into the wall, you're going to get hurt. Now, the wall's never said anything, nor has it done anything. The wall is an oimed. Who's the mahalach? Who's moving? The person, the human being moves. But in order to demonstrate to the imagination, which is used to things moving, which is used to people speaking, which is used to people getting angry and hurting back, so we dress up the interaction that the person's having with the wall as if the wall was speaking and the wall was reacting. But the wall was just standing there. He was running, the wall said don't pass, he bumped into it, and then the wall said if you're going to pass here, I'm going to give you a nice red mark on your forehead. So the wall doesn't have to do anything in order to make that happen. So the same goes for all the malachim who never move, it's all sichliim, and the same goes for HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself who never moves. He's all seichel. So how does the pasuk say, Vayered Hashem al Har Sinai? How does the pasuk say, Vayisatzev al liboy? How does the pasuk say different things about HaKadosh Baruch Hu changing? It's because Godol Koichan Shenevim, Shemedamen Atzura Leyoitzer, that they can talk about the tzura as if it's moving, because they're saying what happened between the interaction between man who was moving and HaKadosh Baruch Hu was static. What happened with the interaction between the imagination, who constantly changes, and the seichel, which never moves. So the whole Torah is telling you about how HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes up and down and keeps on changing, and it's nislabish, because the whole Torah is just shemus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And everything in life is shemus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because you can't leave your body in order to experience anything. Everything you're going to experience is going to be from within. And within, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is being experienced even though he didn't change. But the levush changed. Your imagination is now seeing the self differently. The imagination is now seeing the origin, the Mekor HaChaim, that's at the source of your perception, in a different light. Yesterday, maybe you were happy with him, and today maybe you're not so happy with him. But he didn't change. He's the same origin, he's the same essence. But your mood changed, so now you're dressing him up differently. And so our entire lifetime we juggle with this, trying to figure out how do we please that being within. And while we're trying to do that, we keep dressing him up in different ways. We keep shifting around our perception of him and trying to find a moka menucha, trying to find a place where we and him can get along. Like David HaMelech says, Hashem roi lo yechsar, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is my shepherd, so I'll never lack. And then he says, Bino izdei sheyar bitzeinu al menuchas yana aleinu. This is obviously talking about his nefesh, that he's saying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will take him on places that are calm, that are easy, that sustain his being, that refresh his being. And that's by having the appropriate relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore we say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves chesed. Why? Because if you'll have chesed, you will get close to that being within you. But if you won't have chesed, if you'll be angry, if you'll be upset, if you'll be resisting life, then you're going to get to be in an argument with that being within you. Not because the being within you ever changed or he can change, but because these midos are what bring you closer to him, therefore we say that he loves them. And other midos take you further away from him, therefore we say that he hates them. But it's all trying to animate something that's never moved, something that can't be animated. But in order for the imagination to be able to relate, we have to animate it. Otherwise, there are no words. And then we go back to the Luchas Rishonis. Then we go back to Cheres, And those who are not there, they can't relate, they can't contemplate at that level. So the language, Lashon HaKodesh, is here to save us from all the other languages. It's here to take us back to a place that is before language. Because the letters of Lashon HaKodesh are symbols. So it relates to the symbology that was prevalent before language. It relates to a time that was before civilization, that was before everything that's been done with the human mind in the last 4,000 years, since the Dara Flogam. And this is what we say when we say Chadesh Yemenu Kekedem. Kedem is always talking about ancient times. It's talking about times before the Mabul, the Chochmas B'nai Kedem, the people who lived in the ancient realities prior to civilization. They had wisdom. They had access to raw nature, to raw human nature. We've never seen raw human nature. All we know is what it looks like when it's all dressed up, a suit and a tie, and it's running on Wall Street, busy, busy, busy. But who, what, when? What's going on over there? There's no understanding. It's just a shell. It's just kishuf. That body is animated by pure kishuf. It doesn't know who it's working for. And the Bnei Kedem, they knew themselves as themselves. They weren't part of a society. They weren't part of a civilization. They weren't part of somebody else is going to tell me who I am. They had to work in it for themselves, and those who didn't get anywhere didn't. But those who did got very far. The people were much more developed. They were much more real. By us, we stopped developing at our teenage years. That's approximately when we notice what society has done to this planet, and we're like, okay, this is not going to work, but I guess there's nowhere to go, so we're just going to keep moving. But in the past, people continued to develop their entire life, because why shouldn't we? There's nothing. Our brain wants to continue growing. Our being, our spirit needs that growth. But for us, we're just going to put it in a monotonous state where it's going to continue doing the same thing day after day until the inner drive just dies off. And then we wonder. Midlife crisis, depression, anxiety, all kinds of mental and emotional issues, because this being was never designed for this. The being hates every moment of it. So he's basically rebelling. And his only way to rebel, like we said, he doesn't move, he doesn't speak. He's just a being that stays the way that it is. But the body and our understanding of it and our interaction with it starts becoming difficult, starts becoming more and more painful. It starts slowly giving us all the different clues that the thing that doesn't move is not really on our page, is not really happy with us. So the Nefesh HaMedaberes, the origin of our being, it feels very uncomfortable in our situation, in the situation that we've created for it. And this is why the Torah is so adamant about taking us out of that state. And that's why the Torah calls it Misa. Hashem b'chayim kriyim Mesa means that a person who is not connected to Chachma, he is already dead. Because he's just going through the maneuvers of survival. For who? For what? What is he maintaining? What is he sustaining? And why? And the answer usually is that he just doesn't have anywhere else to go. So he continues living. What else is he going to do? Anything else that he wants to think about is too painful. So the easiest option usually is just to continue going. But there's no life. Life means the desire and the drive to materialize the very being that's within you. To bring it out into realization. To make what's bekoyach into bepoyal. To take something that's misunderstood, that's hidden, that's been battered and broken for thousands of years, and to try to give life to it. That's Chaim, and that's why the Torah is called Torah's Chaim. The purpose why we have so many days is so that we can ponder these things. Otherwise, we wouldn't need that many days. We don't need that much time to eat, to sleep, to see this country, that country. We go for a trip here, for a trip there. We can try all these things in about 5 or 6 years. Then we'd be done. The reason we have so much time is because we're supposed to develop, we're supposed to grow, we're supposed to realize things that are within us that can come out into realization. And this is not just theoretical, this is something that people in ancient cultures did. It's something that happened, it's something that this planet has seen. Otherwise we wouldn't have had prophets. If people wouldn't be able to dedicate their lives to wisdom and actually arrive somewhere, then we wouldn't have prophets. This means that this is very, very real. We're not real. People think of the olden generations of the ancient people like they were primitive. They didn't understand life. Look at us, we have science, we know so much. What do we really know? We know a lot about our senses and the things that they can pick up, but do we know ourselves? Do we know the thing that's looking into that lens, trying to just read what the data is telling him, whatever he's looking at, whatever he's trying to interpret is not him. He doesn't know himself yet. So this is why religion, in its purest form, spirituality, is so much more important than science. Because science can never tell you who you are. And who you are is real. Everything around you is tools to learn who you are. So if science is teaching you who you are, then science is being helpful. But when science is just teaching you what's around you and it's not teaching you who you are, then you get lost in it again. You're lost in your senses one more time. You identify with something that's not you again. So the ancient people were more concerned with what's living inside of them than what's going on outside of them. And this is why they were concerned with language. They were concerned with understanding the human structure, with understanding the potential being. When a human being is born, pure new neshama that has nothing written into it, no limitations, no restrictions, what's the potential of that being? What's the most it can get? What type of levels can we drive it to? Through language, through creating levushim for that being that will actually want to be here and figure itself out. Because that chaim, that chayes, that person gets the chokhmah, like the pasuk says. HaChokhmah techaya es ba'aleo, the chokhmah will give life to those who own it. Or like the pasuk says, HaChokhmah to'ez lechocham, the chokhmah will give strength to the wise. So how can we give power to that being? By giving it a language, by giving it a culture that's going to actually make it grow and evolve. And it's not just going to use this human capacity, this human potential as another brick in the wall to create a nice economy so that we can have whatever. Doesn't even matter what we have. Because if we don't know who we are, what difference does it make what we have? It's like putting a lot of gold and silver into a graveyard. Everybody's dead. What's the point of the gold and silver? They can't appreciate it. The same goes for having a huge economy that gives people money, gives people full bank accounts, gives people all kinds of possessions, but the people themselves are in the graveyard. They're not even alive. So who is appreciating all of it? It's good to show to the neighbor what you have. He can see it. You can't. You can't appreciate it. You're not home. You got to run. Otherwise, you won't be able to cover all these different expenses for next month. We got to keep showing everybody that we can do this, that we got it covered. And then what? How does it all end? Don't we know already the end of the story? How many times do we have to go through the same story until we recognize that maybe this is not the story we want to tell? Maybe there's a different story. So that was the power of Reb Meir, to wake people up, to bring them back to their origins, to their source, so that they can understand who they're working for. Because when they understand who they're working for, they'll understand how to work it. It's like the Chazal tell us, why are people davening today and they're not answered? Because they don't know the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They don't know the name of the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they don't know who they're davening to. They're davening to their own imagination. They're davening to something that doesn't necessarily exist in the way that they imagine it. And therefore, that thing that they're davening to is never going to answer them. So only when a person knows through wisdom who he's davening to, then his davening starts becoming relevant. His davening will actually create something. He will know what to daven for, and he'll know how to manifest things from the beyond, from his potential, from a place where a person has the most power. Out of everything in this world, the human being has the most power. More than all the animals, more than all the trees and all the plants and everything else, regardless of whether it was created by man or by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the origin of the human mind, the one that's capable of understanding language, is more powerful than all of those. And all of those were created for it. And it wasn't created for any of those. So when we use it to create other things, that's Avodah Zarah. That means we've forgotten who we're working for. We just got busy with a specific Tmuna, with a specific manifestation that we're trying to run after, at the expense of the very one that's running. the very one that's driving the machine, the very one that's within us, the neshama l'neshama, the one that wants to manifest something real, something that he created, not something that we created. So he says that Reb Meir went to a place that has no gvul, that's beyond our understanding. That we couldn't paskin like him because he goes back to the luchas rishonos. He goes back to a place that we can't contemplate, to a place that we're not ready to connect to. But mitzad Reb Meir, everything goes back to its origin, and therefore he said, "En metil kankantam v'yesh leremes shi begematria shemes." He says kankantam is begematria shemes, which means names. Perikam de bruchas lashinan. Masher some shamas, right? They say al tikra shamas elu shemes, the shmo kegurim. V'isa b'yuma Reb Meir dig b'shmu, that he used to be medaik in the names. Kedir d'Hashem yichayis v'koich hadover. The name is the life force and the power of the thing. K'mo shezbar b'mokamacher. V'zeh Reb Meir b'madregoso yidig b'shmo shi mekor chayav aproti b'mekor hakloli. That he could find his essence, he could find his undefined being, the source of his life, and he could recognize it within the bigger source of all of life, so he says, Dioi is a remes to the force of speech, to the koyach of loshen. Because the Dioi, before you write anything with it, it can contain with it all the wisdoms in the world. And as soon as you write, then you've created with this Dioi a specific concept, a specific word. But you could have written any word with the Dioi. The Dioi has the power to write any word. So the same thing within you, the power that understands language, has the power to create any type of personality you've ever imagined, and even beyond that, personalities you can't imagine. Because it's within you. You've just chosen a very specific personality, you've manifested that, and you're sticking to it as if it's going to save your life. But in reality, that personality that you manifest is what stands between you and life. Only by overcoming that personality and going back to your origin and being an undefined being, do you go back to the Mekar HaChaim and you ask for a new manifestation. Different personality. Like David HaMelech says in Tehillim, Leif Tor Broli Alekim, V'ruach Nochain Chadash Bekirbi. Give me a spirit that is Nochain, that is accurate. Be Mechadesh within me, a personality that actually reflects my nature, so that my nature and my personality can stop fighting with each other. So Reb Meir, he was able to be Medaik Bishmo. What does it mean, Medaik Bishmo? What is the Indian of Shemus? So the Chochmah of Shemus, according to our tradition, is a deeper Chochmah than any other Chochmah. Because every single Chochmah that you're going to contemplate, you can only contemplate it through the Chochmah of Shemus. Without names, how are you going to contemplate anything? So names come before contemplation. Names come before philosophy. Names come before ideology. Because it's those very words that you're going to use in order to create your ideology, in order to create your concept, in order to create your personality or your reality or your associations. So the Chochmah of Shemus, identifying appropriately names and recognizing what they are, this is the life of the thing itself. And that's why a davar and a dibur are so close in our language. Because every davar that you're considering, you're not considering the actual davar. You're considering the dibur within your mind that correlates to that davar. You can't touch the davar, right? Your senses can see. Your senses can listen. Your senses can smell and taste and touch. But your senses can't allow you to leave your body to experience that thing. They're bringing everything back to you. And what do you experience? A dibur. You're experiencing a description to yourself in words of what is happening. That's your actual experience in the Nefesh HaMedaberes. And therefore, Reb Meir was able to identify the names that create reality, and through the names, a person could bring everything back to its origin. And who is the origin? The one that's dressing up within the names. Who is dressing up within the names? The formless. Who is allowing the formless to manifest? The being that's within all beings, the Shem Havaya. So within every name is the Shem Havaya giving it life. Within every name is a different way of dressing up the Shem Havaya. And that's why we find that the HaKadosh Baruch Hu's names, Eke and the Shem Havaya itself, are created from the 4 vowels. Aleph, Hey, Vav, and Yud. Because vowels indicate the thing that is active within the language. So when I say any letter, so I say a B. So inherently, if I want to say a base, I need to have vowels in order to be able to express the base, even though the base is not a vowel. I can't say base without having some type of a vowel, giving it life from within. So the base is like a golem. It doesn't have the ability to manifest. But the vowel gives it the ability to come out into manifestation. So the same thing, the life within all life is created through vowels. That's why we have these letters that create the names, because they identify the vowels that are within all of reality, that make reality move, that make reality real. And those vowels are creating and interpreting our very experience, this moment, as well as any other. So without the ability to bring out letters and words from the infinite, yesh me'ayin, we wouldn't be able to interpret life. We wouldn't be able to create a personality in the first place. So our whole personality is built through letters and vowels that move upon the chayas that's within us and dress it up to be what it is. And that's the chokhmah of Shemus, is identifying each letter and each word and knowing what it really stands for. Because really the Torah is about the language more than anything else. Understanding Lashon HaKodesh is what the Torah was given to us for. And then there was additions to the language. Even the David HaMelech in Tehillim, he termed different phrases and he coined different expressions within Lashon HaKodesh, where each one made the language richer and richer for the future generations, in order to be able sort of to compete with all the other languages that are bounding humanity's mind. But at the essence of this language, what's hiding within all of it is a root back to the source of language, is a root back to the origins of how people think. And that's the chokhmah of Shemus. Chokhmah of Shemus is how do you maneuver within a mind by creating concept yesh me'ayin. And how do you create experiences for the mind and behaviors that can create a society, that can create interactions. All this has to do with the chokhmah of Shemus. And the mayor was an expert at this, where he can bring everything back to its original source. ועוד יש לפרש לושן על סויף דאטה, ויובן גם כמו שאומר אחר כך שמאיר, שמאנר, ויש לובן למה זה מאיר וזה מאנר, וקריר נויראי, ולא גם כן מאיר, ועניין לכוי אחד. גם לא משנה כלל שמו של רב מאיר, ועלי נויראי מוירה גם כן מאנר, like we said before, that Reb Meir's real name was Noirai, but the meaning is the same. One is in Hebrew, one is in Lashon HaKodesh, and one is in Aramaic. Noirai is in Aramaic. So Reb Meir, even though his name was Noirai, they used to call him Rabbi Meir, Shemeir ein HaChachomen ba'alocha. So it says, v'oid, another question, Ech Meir ba'alocha v'en alocha kamoisa. How can you say Meir ein HaChachomen ba'alocha and then you don't even pass him like him? אבל הנה כמו שם תחילה תורת השם בסוף תורתו. When a person goes into understanding life and understanding reality, he can explain himself still to other people, because he's still going from their state of mind and starting to dig in, starting to go deeper. When he finally arrives to identifying when he goes deep into the spiritual and he starts knowing things that other people can't relate to, that's called his Torah. It's not called anymore Torah Hashem, because he is now the Baal Torah. That's why Chazal laugh at somebody that stands up in front of a Sefer Torah and he doesn't stand up in front of a Talmud Chochem, because the only goal of a Sefer Torah is to create a Talmud Chochem. The only reason the Sefer Torah was given such importance in our minds, in our imagination, and we raised the name to such a high level so that it has such tremendous importance, is so that one day a Talmud Chochem can be created by it. So that the imagination gives it enough respect so that it knows that there's a seichel, there's something that is beyond you. You have to go work for it, you have to go look for it. But this person who has managed to actually arrive at the seichel, he is much more important than the Sefer Torah. He is the purpose of the Sefer Torah in the first place. And therefore it's called Torah Soy, it's called his Torah. There's nobody else that knows it the way that he does. Echad, be'inyan meir man is the same thing. Rak shezeh lashon hakodesh lashon harami yedim hashamli she'en malach hashores makirim belashon harami v'lechein man hirim is or Torah she'ineh lom. So the lashon noirai speaks about the hidden side of the Torah. The lashon meir speaks about the nigla side of the Torah. Mashein ke malach hashores she'em yoyse shleimim beniglis masugas Hashem em asigin oise. They don't understand Aramaic because they don't understand the nelom. She'anelam ze chelik odam elika, that a person has a deeper level of the Malach HaShoros that he can be masig, which is the Torah that's nelam, that's not nigla. And that's something that only a person has access to. Lu v'esan elamim, Hashem ka Malach HaShoros, k'mo shenizbar b'mo k'macha.